So the discussion we shall have today is around youth and electoral participation, the current status, the expectations, and also the opportunities for youth participation. I'm sure we are all aware now that we can see the drive towards mobilization for the harmonized elections in 2023. It's across the political divide. We can see that preparations are being made. We can see that there's talk of voter registration. There's talk of also voter education that has already begun. So we've had this conversation in all the 4 youth summits provincially, where we were saying, how can we assist each other in enhancing the participation of young people around electoral processes? The challenge with young people is that the numbers, you have them, but to then meaningfully deploy the numbers that you have in elections, there seems to be a challenge. Where exactly is the challenge? Yet we all know that to participate in elections, it requires basic things that you must fulfill. Number 1, registration. You must be a registered voter in Zimbabwe for you to participate in elections. And participation is not just as a voter, but you can also participate also as a candidate. But there are requirements that you must fulfill to have this kind of participation. So here I think where we are at this summit, now we want to go deeper in this conversation to say, why is youth participation on a minimum? Why are young people affected by voter apathy? What can change or be changed to enhance the participation of young people in the coming harmonized elections? But also we are saying there are some key players in the electoral plane. This includes ZEC, this independent Chapter 12 commission, who are expected to discharge their duties and also who are expected to man this process of elections. We know there are preparations that they must be undertaking right now to make sure that it's a level playing field for all candidates and also a level playing field for citizens to actively demand their civil and political rights through elections. So we are saying, ZEC being the main body, where are they in terms of preparations? We are already in 2021. I don't think we can keep on saying we are in 2021, Naika. We are now in 2022. Because we are already at 22 days to go towards the end of 2021. So we cannot count the 22 days. Let's just say we are now in 2022. This leaves us with 1 working year towards the 2023 harmonized elections. So we need to hear from ZEC themselves to say, where are we in terms of our preparations? And also to hear from ZEC to say, what are the opportunities for young people to meaningfully participate in this process? We also want to hear from them. But also to say, amongst ourselves, we are seeing what is happening. We are in different political parties. We are participating as young people. What do you think we can do as young people to make sure that come 2023, we are able to discharge our civil and political rights in a fair manner? And of course, at the end of the day, when the outcome comes, it's an outcome that we embrace without complaining and making noise. The challenge with young people is that after elections, it is the loudest voice in complaining. To say, this outcome is not for us, this is not right, no, this is not correct. But what have you been doing in preparation to participate, if you ever did, if you even did anything? So these are the questions we want to answer today. But of course, we want to hear the church's views, the young people themselves, their views, but also to hear from ZEC themselves. So my role today would be to moderate this conversation. I don't want us to speak of the generic things that we already know, the things that we discussed at the provinces when we had our provincial summits. No, we want to go deeper to say, how can we make sure that as we come out of this summit, we have something concrete in terms of making sure that our voice is heard as young people, our voice is strong in the coming elections. So we want to have an honest but also a very constructive conversation as young people about this process of elections. It's a constitutional right found in the Constitution for you to be able to associate with your political party of choice, for you to be able to support your political party of choice, for you to be able to run as a candidate under the political party of your choice. It is your constitutional right, right? It is not upon us to tell you who you are supposed to support. You are allowed to choose. You have the liberty to do that. But what we want to do now is to make sure that the youth agenda is strong in the coming elections. The wishes and aspirations of young people are realized in the coming elections. So we now want to hear the current status, where we are, the challenges, and also the opportunities that we can leverage upon to make sure that we are not the ones on the other side crying foul after 2023. So in terms of our panel, I'm surprised we are now 27 here. I was thinking that we only had 3 people here, so I may not know the others. So I think just to ease this process, I'll ask that maybe we can introduce ourselves and where we are coming from. So over to you.
Good afternoon, delegates. My name is Roy Matika from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission.
Good afternoon. My name is Sondlani Nyamezela Dube, Sox the poet. I am the one who referred to himself as the political analyst.
So we'll be analyzing politically. Okay.
Reverend Gandia, ZCC Left in Marsh West.
I'm Elliot Kufuma from Lawaya.
All right, so this is our panel for today. Unfortunately, there is no woman. It's just me who's going to be moderating, but which is still fine. I think at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that we hear submissions around this thing. And I would also ask that maybe we also try to listen in carefully, because at the end of the day, this process is ours. We must own it. And we are trying to be constructive in it to make sure that we make sure our voices are heard. So without wasting much time, I think I'll ask our member from Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to just take us through in terms of the preparations, the state of preparedness, where are we, what are the challenges, and also the opportunities for young people around elections. Over to you, Mr. Matik.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. First and foremost, let me just say an election is like a wedding. A wedding does not happen overnight. There are processes and procedures which must be followed before an election can take place. In election management, we speak about what we call the electoral cycle, which is critical in terms of programming. Remember, we had the last election in 2018, and the new cycle kicked off in 2019. So in terms of electoral cycle programming, we talk of the pre-electoral phase, the election phase, and the post-election phase. So currently, when we look at the timelines, we are in the pre-electoral phase. And in terms of the pre-electoral phase, one of the things that is pertinent to that phase is the issue of mobilizing people to register and vote. And has already been alluded by the moderator that you guys have had conversations around this area of registering to vote. When we look at our statistics, we know that there are currently over 2 million plus registered youth who are on the voters roll. But when you look at the demographics in terms of population, there are more youth than what is obtaining on the voters roll. So there's need for an extensive drive in partnership between the Commission as well as the civic and faith-based organizations and the youth organizations to play a critical role in ensuring that we encourage the young people to register and to vote. Why is it important for us to be able to register to vote? Remember, if you read the Constitution of Zimbabwe in terms of Section 67, it alludes that every Zimbabwean citizen has the right to vote. Every Zimbabwean citizen has the right to stand as a candidate, to nominate a potential candidate of their choice. So if you are a registered voter, you are able to vote in an election. You are able to also nominate people who want to stand as your councillors, people who want to stand as members of the National Assembly, and the person ultimately responsible for governing the country in the form of the president. You are also able to stand as a candidate yourselves. So essentially, if you are 21 years and above, you can qualify to stand as a councillor, you can qualify to stand as a member of the National Assembly. If you are 40 years and above, you are no longer a youth. If we go to the basic definition of the United Nations, which says a youth is a person between the ages of 18 and 34. So for you to be able to stand as a president, you need to be 40. So opportunities, as the moderator has asked, we have opportunities to stand as candidates. We have opportunities to influence the direction which we want the country to move in terms of governance, be it at local and at national level. So when we go to the next election, we are hoping to see more youth taking part in terms of contesting as candidates. As an independent electoral management board, our role is to conscientize and sensitize people in terms of their rights and responsibilities insofar as the issue of elections is concerned. So for now, I think I'll give an opportunity to the other colleagues to also take part in the discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matika, for that. So that's the position of ZEC. I will then now ask, I think, our political analysts to take us through. What are your thoughts? What are the challenges or the impediments to youth participation in elections? What do you think are the opportunities that we can leverage upon to strengthen the participation of young people in elections? Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think maybe one of the most important things to note is in Zimbabwe we exist in a system where we've got something that we can call engineered political apathy, right? Whereby we're saying that as young people, because of the narrative that is there, that to say politics is a dirty game, young people are made to be afraid. Because of the narrative that politics or voting doesn't change anything, young people, they do not participate because they generally believe that, right? So these small things, when you look at the psychology of politics, they sort of like trickle down into the bigger picture, and then later on as they become the problem, to say you do not participate because you believe that nothing changes, right? But then like my good sir said here, right, about in terms of the processes, whereby in elections we're having different processes. Young people, they need to know the importance of these processes, whereby when we're talking about the pre-election cycle, how important it is, because I feel like that's where the conversation is lost. Because the election cycle, the pre-election cycle talks to issues of development. The pre-election cycle talks to literally making the actual decisions, knowing how and who to select and when to select them, and why you should be selected as well within the key decision-making process of the country, right? But then when we've got young people who believe that politics doesn't work, that in politics also works as political gold, to say there are people who benefit from the apathy and there are people who benefit from the participation, right? So in political apathy, that's when we later on have people complaining about rigging and whatsoever. But the problem is not that there is rigging. The problem is that young people do not participate, but they do not participate because of different reasons. One of the reasons to start with is the fact that they do not have an experience of where they can fully say that elections have worked. And where elections have worked, we've got a system whereby parties and politics then says because party A has won over party B, then party B then believes that they have been rigged. That takes away the confidence in the electoral systems of the country. So we're having also in terms of youth, different generations of youth. We've got youth who are like me of the 90s, who still have at least that taste to say there was a time where politics worked, right? And we've seen this happening. Then we've got the millennials who are coming as Generation X later on, as well, saying we do not have that experience and we do not really care. So I think that's one thing that we need to also look at. There are people who do not participate simply because they do not care. They do not see the value in the political system and in political participation, right? And then maybe But in terms of opportunities, we exist right now in a society whereby there are a lot of opportunities. Like he hinted at a lot of opportunities, and also some of them that we can also leverage on is in cases of being electoral observers as well. As young people, if you are afraid to be bashed later on because politics comes with violence in our nation, right? And then go and observe, get an observer role. If you are afraid to say you want to speak up and you do not want to be seen, you can be there to help develop manifestos that represent the actual needs of young people. So there are a lot of opportunities that young people can leverage on, but the problem is they they lack knowledge. Young people will lack knowledge, and we do not have the interest. We like to talk about politics, but we do not want to participate in politics, because our politics has been made to seem as if it's a very violent system, right? And violence, we dread violence. We've had cases in the past years, but then again, that doesn't stop us from changing the current narrative. So I think the most important thing that we're supposed to be doing is to be contributing to the narrative, bring the hope element to the electoral system. And how do you do that? Through strengthening systems. How do you do that? Through educating people about their political and civil rights, right? How do you do that? Through people having an appreciation of constitutionalism within their systems, because once you know how you can partake and what protects you, then you do not have the fear. Once you take away the fear, then that means a lot of young people will be there to participate. But young people right now, they do not participate. Then another last point that I think is important. Right now we're having a lesser young people participating, like I said, maybe because they also do not care, or because there are other systematic barriers that are there. But one other systematic barrier that is there, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, you find that access to documentation has been restricted, right? So now what happens is, how do you register to vote if you do not have an ID? How do you register to vote if you do not even have a birth certificate? You are there from Kumamisha, that side, right? And you do not have access to these important documents. That's where the conversation is lost. That's where young people then later on would say, let me just concentrate on Chikafu, because at least that way I know that this comes directly into my mouth and I can concentrate on that. But then we then lose the conversation in the long run to say, when you participate in politics, when you influence decisions, when you become part of the electorate, then you are able to actually make the change that you envision as you see it. So I think in short, which I feel like other speakers can also build on, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I caught on something I think I'm learning. I mean, we continue to learn from his presentation. He spoke of the youth. We are bracketing ourselves into one bracket, but within that bracket, there are further brackets. To say there are those who were born in the 80s, there were those who were born in the 90s, then 2000s, and those born in the 80s like myself, at some point in our lives, we saw some glimmer of the fruits of electoral participation. We were not participating then, but we saw the participation through our parents and our families, and we experienced the fruits of that to some extent. Then there's the 90s. Well, they hear this from others to say there was a time, when elections really gave us the results we wanted. And they live vicariously through secondary information to say there was a time when youth participation really did bring change. Then now we come to the problematic group now. AMA 2000, they just don't care. Why don't they care? Where can we change the narrative as young people? Because right now, those three groups found in the bracket of young people, we must try to make sure that we capture them and they participate. Voter apathy that is spoke of. For the longest time, the narrative is to the benefit of others, by the way. To say, nothing is changing, why should we bother, why should we care? But we are also saying now there are these groups within the young people that must be addressed differently in terms of their life experience and in terms of their needs. How then can we address those needs and make sure that they participate? But I think at the end of the day, he said some really valuable things, and I think we can learn from those. I know some of you right now will be just saying, such jargon, what a yawn, I just want to go for lunch, But trust you me, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, this process is the one that will determine the price of the bread that you buy. It's the one that's going to determine whether fuel will be there at the fuel stations. It's the one that will determine how many power cuts we are going to experience in the future. So at the end of the day, even if you don't participate, it's to your own detriment and to the detriment of your children and your children's children. So securing the future of the young ones who are coming after us also, because we can't be selfish to just think of ourselves. We also have children and their children who are coming. What are we doing to make sure that we secure the future of those young ones coming behind us? So thank you so much. Now I think we'll move on to Reverend Kandia to just give us the church's perspective. I think in terms of enhancing the participation of young people, what is the role of the church in terms of electoral processes, pre-election, during elections, post-elections, and also maybe you can speak to the work that the church has been doing around elections since time immemorial. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tariro. As a church, with amongst other and many other areas which we preach and teach about, we teach about justice, we teach about democracy, our rights and peace. And these facets, they cycle around registration. Our position as a church, we encourage young people to register so that they can be able to exercise their right to vote. May you allow me to ask all the young people here, how many of you have registered so far? Can you show by show?
Let's not lie. Let's be honest.
It's not even the half of the people, ne? Thank you for those who have registered. And we are encouraging all those who are yet to register, please register so that you can exercise your right. It is your right to vote. It is your right to choose your leader in your local areas at national level. Number two, voting, as I say, it's your right. So we encouraging you to exercise your right. Number three, we are all political figures, whether we vote or we don't vote. It will affect our milk and butter issues. Number four, as young people, can we avail ourselves into leadership position? I remember a couple of years back when the feminist movement started, even up to now, we were saying, let's vote for ladies, let's vote for ladies. But now we have gone further. Let's vote for young people. And young people can be voted in by young people. There is no way the old people will come and vote the young people. So we are saying, let's avail ourselves in these positions. We are going to school. Let's avail ourselves as we learn, we can also lead. As local councillors, as candidates, and from 21, you are allowed to be a councillor. From 21, as even MPs, various positions in political arena. Let's encourage each other. Let's have candidates who comes from the young adults. And then the other thing, as we are approaching elections in a couple of months to go, we appeal to you, zero violence as a church. It already started in some pockets of the country. It's still isolated. But what worries us as a church is not those who are on top who are suffering, but it's those who are the grassroots who are suffering, who hit each other, who injure each other, and some, they are churchmates. They congregate, they have one pastor or one priest, but they are fighting on those grassroots. So we are saying, as a church, as we go out there, stop violence. We don't want to fight because of politics. Let's raise our issues, democracy, justice, and peace. We want peace as we come towards the elections. As ZCC, as the church, we have peace committees all over our districts, all over our provinces, as we try and drive to say, let's have peace. As the church, you are the salt of this world. So let's stand pamukaha, like what we say when we preach, between the people and God, so that our country will be peaceful. Our country is known of having violent elections for a couple of years now. But I think we are the people who can change this towards 2022, 2023, that it should come and go. There's life after elections. We can fight today, you can fight tomorrow, but there's life after elections. If you are my neighbor, you remain my neighbor. So, as a church, this is what we are asking you to do. We engage ourselves in our districts, in our provinces, through the church. We raise awareness how best we can do this so that we create confidence. One of the issues why young people are not voting, they don't have confidence in the system. Because you know, the past elections, there were so many disputes. So some will say we don't have confidence, or whether I vote or I don't vote, nothing will change. But I'm saying, it is your right. Let's do it peacefully. It is your right. Let's do it with our hearts so that we are working towards the betterment of our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Kandia. That's the church's political parties during elections. We are a highly polarized country where we have actually mastered the art of fighting one another based on the politics that we support. And at the end of the day, it's very unfortunate that the weapons of violence that are deployed into the communities are young people. If we are able to find each other and be able to tolerate each other in our differences and also in our affiliations, we may not be able to have these conversations around maintaining peace in elections. We are also saying, young people, let's find each other and make sure that we are tolerant, we do not fight each other, we do not kill each other, we do not injure each other in the coming elections. Because no matter what, you will never find an old man or an old woman going into the communities and deploying violence. It is us, it's you and me. But at what point do you allow yourself to be deployed to give violence to your fellow sister and brother? At what point do you accept such a mission? At what cost at the end of the day? So we must then say there's a generational mandate that we must uphold, a mandate for young people that ties us together as a generation to say, regardless of the differences, we must be able to find and forge an agenda that is for young people. Even if they try to make sure they disunite us, because it's politics or for disuniting people. If you didn't know that, it's very unfortunate.